Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the second half of Vigilantism and You. That isn't what it's really called. That was just my intro. As always, Darren Jolly's right there.
What was it? Delphinium Morpheus? Delphinium?
Delphus Morphinium.
Delphus Morphinium. That's a code word. I don't know what it's for, but
Delphus Morphinium. Okay, so this is the second hour or so of vigilantes and vigilantism. So historically, at least here in the United States, again, I think a lot of what they called lynch mobs and things like that were used in order to control certain portions of the population, and they called it vigilantism. There's also like privatized vigilantism, which would be like security guards on the most basic level.
Elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, so they considered like a lot of the strike breakers vigilantes, even though they were hired by whatever company was that the employees were striking against. But a sheriff's posse was at least in part vigilantes, even though they had been deputized. And depending on how you look at it, if said sheriff who had deputized the posse had something that wasn't above board, like, a lot of those guys down in Tulsa in 1921 were sheriffs, and they deputized a lot of these people that were their KKK buddy. So now that KKK guy had a fucking badge and he could go and shoot these people, and it was supposedly legal.
But they still identified that as vigilantism. Yeah. Even though they gave them the formal power of the state to do what they did.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm guessing that it depends on what article you read, who wrote it. If it's a white guy with ties to KKK historically, they were completely legal and did everything correct. Thin blue line thing again. If it was the great granddaughter of one of the banker who got shot, and I don't know if the banker got shot or not, but if it was the great granddaughter of the banker that got shot, great, then she probably has a different slant on it, and they were vigilantes, or possibly just fucking criminals from the get. So I don't know, but for some reason, when we started talking about this, I don't know if you remember or not, but in 1984, Bernard Goetz, or Bernie Goetz, shot Bernie Goetz. He shot those 4 kids in the fucking subway in New York.
Yeah, I don't remember this one. What was the context?
They were gonna rob him. Okay. One of them had a screwdriver. I think another one had a knife. So he shot these 4 kids.
He had a gun on him. Okay.
Yeah. He shot these 4 kids. Everybody was up in arms. He's a vigilante. He shouldn't have done it. He's saying self-defense. I wasn't a vigilante. They also called him a racist. The 4 kids happened to be black. None of the kids died. I just double checked to make sure. None of the kids died. One of them did get paralyzed from the neck down, which isn't all that bad.
You know, I'm going to catch a stray bullet that's going to come towards you.
There's a lot of people I know that are paralyzed from the neck up. A lot of them. They can't even play lawn darts.
That's really funny, bud. That's fucking hilarious. And that's all I've got to say about
Thanks.
that.
I try. So he ended up
getting out.
Okay. He was found innocent.
Was it just him and the four that were there witnesses? Was there?
I can't remember all of it. I mean, dude, it was 1984. It was a long time ago.
Don't tell me that you were just thinking back to remember it.
Well, no, I just looked it up real quick to make sure because I couldn't remember how many of the kids there were. I just knew that he shot some kids in the subway, so I looked up to see what the numbers were. I can read the fucking art. Talk some more.
Anything from 1984.
Talk some more, and I'll do some more reading and find out.
Keep going on wherever the direction you were going.
Well, my point is that even back then, things were kind of skewed and confused. And I'm willing to bet that if the roles were reversed again, and it wasn't a white guy, and let's say since they were in New York, it was a Puerto Rican or a black guy,
okay,
and 4 white kids, and they shot the 4 white kids, dude's going to prison. That's speculation. I don't know for sure if that's the case or not, but
what if it was O.J. Simpson?
They would just chase him around in a subway car. We can't get him.
Somebody get Kato. Where's Kato?
The helicopters would crash into the fucking subway tunnels. I don't know.
They'd find a glove somewhere.
But see that I'm surprised that he ended up going to prison the second time around because he didn't.
Even when he robbed?
Yeah.
That shit?
Right. And I think at that point, like people were just saying, you know what? And he wasn't rich anymore. But I think at that point they said, fuck it. You know what? We let him get away with murder. And he continues to do stupid shit. So we're putting him in jail now.
You really think that was the conversation that they had with the DA? They're like,
no,
we let him get away with murder. The motherfucker goes and robs this fucking place. Have you seen him in a picture lately? He doesn't look good. He should be in prison. Anybody who looks that bad should be in prison anyway. You really think that's the logic that went on in their mind?
Well, no, not necessarily. But again, he wasn't rich anymore because he was stealing people's shit.
Yeah, he was. It was a weird robbery situation. What he was in? I think he was in Nevada.
Yeah, he's in jail or in prison in Nevada now. And I think it was a sports memorabilia thing, and he was trying to steal back like something that he had sold them, like an autographed picture or a fucking ring or something that he had sold these guys. And he was trying to steal it back. I could be wrong.
What was his lawyer's name originally? The guy that he ended up defending Bill Clinton, I think, when the impeachment stuff was going on.
If the glove don't fit, you need to acquit. What was it, Johnny
Cochran? Johnny Cochran. That's right. Johnny Cochran.
But then the other lawyer for him was the Kardashians' dad.
I don't know anything about that. I'm happy to say I don't know anything about that family.
I don't really know a lot about him either, but I know that he was. Anyway, he's dead now, but I think he was part of the defense team too.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I had to sell that card to get Johnny Cochran to fucking defend me. I want that card back.
But that's an example of, and doesn't have shit to do with vigilantes, just how fucked up and backwards everything is, because what's his name? The dude that played Beretta, Robert Blake. He got away with murder because he was rich and famous. Well, I mean, how many fucking sports dudes have gotten away with rape?
Yeah, a lot, and a lot.
I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, Kobe Bryant. You know,
You can't disparage a dead man. Leave Kobe out of this.
should have picked a different helicopter.
Damn, bro. You can get fucking killed in some states for saying that. Seriously, you think I'm fucking joking?
I don't give a fuck. He's great. He was a great basketball player, but he was also a fucking rapist. Fuck that guy. And fuck Roethlisberger and any of the other fucking number of rapists. For some reason, Nebraska ended up with lots of criminals. The Raiders obviously ended up with lots of criminals.
Obviously, because they're Raiders, right? They're pirates, right?
Arr.
Can we start talking about
vigilantes
again? Yeah, I don't want to talk about people that are in sports that have the ability to buy a good lawyer, because there is no ring of vigilanteism in any of that scene.
No, I only mentioned it because you started talking about
O.J. Simpson. Yeah, I know.
I got it. So I don't really know what the fuck. Like, let's talk more in detail about the things that you want to say, because clearly anything I say is not correct this evening, and that could be because of the fucking Delphus Porphinium.
No, I mean, it's not like, I think we're just talking past each other a little bit. I mean, when I was saying the subjective thing earlier, maybe I was putting it in the wrong way. And so I say on this level that there's people that perceive themselves as agents of history, right? They make this choice, and like when a person's acting out and doing a mass shooting, and then they turn a weapon on themselves, that's that's a much grayer area, right? But the shit that happened on January 6th, those motherfuckers had a fantasy in their mind that the political system that they were a part of was not functioning effectively. So, like when I said the strategic institutionalism thing, it's a weird contradiction that's built into our system because we have such reverence to the notion that our nation was built on this revolutionary moment where we said fuck you to power and created our own system of power. And as that power reproduces itself, it has enhanced itself in a way to where it's more powerful than any power they were even experiencing back then. So subjects inside of this, because we hold this reverence towards that act and those concepts, picture themselves in the shoes of the people that were throwing the Tea Party movement. They were throwing the tea over the side. That the act of civil disobedience to the point of where you carry a gun when you're doing it. It's not just, I'm going to stand, I'm going to do a sit in, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But because these individuals want to be agents of history, so like Kyle Rittenhouse, right? He was a 17-year-old that went to Kenosha, Wisconsin, because a black man was killed by a 29-year-old black man by the name of Jacob Blake was killed by a police officer. I can't remember the fucking guy's name. Rooston was his last name. And there was a huge BLM thing that erupted up there.
Rittenhouse.
No, I'm
the
other guy. Yeah, okay. Rooston was the cop.
Gotcha.
That shot Blake, and Rittenhouse went from Illinois, and he met up there with other people. And the rhetorical disposition was that we are here to protect the small business person, the businesses, so they don't get looted and rioted by these
angry black men.
Yes, exactly. Something. I mean, they're creating a caricature in their head of the way that these other individuals. So they see themselves as legitimate. They see these other people as rabble rousers, and they go up there. And Rittenhouse turns his gun on two people, kills 3 people, kills one, and injures a third. I mean, there were more people that were there. I mean, it was all caught on fucking tape, right? Um, but the image that Rittenhouse had in his mind was firmly rooted in this space that I am a historical actor. These other people are trying to destroy this system that I love, that I'm a part of. This this is honestly, like, I think this is how a person gets to the point where they see something happening, and then they grab their gun and grab their fucking camo and all their different, and then go up and then commit these fucking acts. Everything that happened on January 6th, you know, all these motherfuckers, they're stop the steal, dead people voting, or people that are voting twice, or people that are illegals coming into Mexico and into Arizona and New Mexico, every fucking conspiracy theory that was, I mean, because Trump, they filed tons and tons and tons and tons of legal injunctions, and they lost all but one, and the one was about as meaningless as it could have fucking possibly been. But in the face of all that, there was this nightmare sort of fantasy that this homage to the Revolutionary Act, which is tied to that, the Declaration of Independence. And I mean, this is a very, it creates a very strange social psychosis where people think, where you have the Oath Keepers, the 3%ers, like these groups that bandy together and they identify themselves as law in the face of lawlessness, vigilantes. I mean, that's really what they, I mean, that's the only thing. Like, when I see a psychosis like that, there's no legal institution that can be put in place. Like, the system itself rewrites that, because a lot of these guys are, like you said, paralyzed from the neck up. But some of them aren't. Some of them are actually quite fucking intelligent, and they're very persuasive, and they can get people to come in and do all these various different things, and then they commit these acts. And tons of motherfuckers have, from January 6th end up in fucking jail. Everybody except for the one that Tucker Carlson loves to talk about over and over and over again, Ray Epps. But the Ray Epps question is a very legitimate question, because he was caught on camera, not caught on camera, he was filmed on camera on the 5th at that saying, we need to go to the Capitol tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. And then he was with them outside at the barricades, and telling people to go in. And then, like, he changed his story a bunch, but it was funny. Like, one of the ones that was on the Tucker Carlson stuff, and I hate ever citing Tucker Carlson because I think he's a royal douchebag, but he's a royal douchebag that sometimes pays attention to things that mainstream left-wing media would not fucking touch. They did an interview a couple of weeks ago on 60 Minutes on this Ray Epps guy, like trying to absolve him, and they're like,
an interview with Tucker Carlson,
no,
or an interview with Ray Epps?
With Ray Epps,
okay.
Yeah, not with Tucker Carlson. That Fox News fired him, right? Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, you don't pay any attention to anything that goes on in the world. Yeah, he's out. They fired him a couple of weeks ago. He got too big for his britches. It's the same thing that they did with the the other douchebags that Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck. They got too big and they fucking ousted them. But this Ray Epps thing was a legitimate question, where you have all of these other people who did, and to Ray, on Ray Epps' side, he didn't go into the Capitol, but he was definitely inciting. He was telling people, and it's all on camera. It's not confusing. There is no ambiguity in this case, but it's almost like he was playing into that fantasy that he knew that these other people had of wanting to be part of history. Like the QAnon guy with the horns and the fucking body paint and all that. She's in fucking jail for 10 or 15 years. Like, he got charged with all kinds of shit.
So maybe I'm as guilty as the government as far as trying to put people into categories. Because I think, again, in my head, and I'm just clarifying this because I think this is an important conversation to have, but at maybe the minimum, I would have considered those January 6th guys a militia of sorts, but not vigilantes. Now, I know that some people in the news have considered them vigilantes, and maybe those people themselves consider themselves vigilantes. But so the January 6th guys, I mean, are you saying that they were vigilantes because they wanted to be part of history, or because they were trying to right a wrong by keeping Trump in office, which wouldn't have fucking happened anyway unless they completely overthrew the government, which wasn't going to fucking happen. But I mean, is that what you're saying? Is that they were trying to? Is that why they're vigilantes? Because they were trying to keep Trump in office and right that wrong?
Okay, so I'm using the concept of a category differently than you are. I'm not trying to plug them into a category based on anything that I see them doing, right? I am putting them into a category based on how they see themselves relative to the acts that they're committing to as an extra legal act that is trying to right what they perceive to be a wrong, where it's like they're imagining themselves as George Washington and Paul Revere and Sam Adams and all these different individuals back during that time period. They're like there's like this fantasy that they're playing out where they're going up against power, and power that's repressive, power that's trying to uh, like it's more about a fantasy of the way that they're seeing themselves than a legal category. That's really what I'm and if you get to where you're saying it's a militia, it's not a vigilante. Like, so I mean, I'm not going to get caught into a discussion where is a militia a group of vigilantes then, I mean, like these are all categorical distinctions. Like I'm pointing out a social tendency inside of a system that feeds into that social tendency because of the way that we have an affinity towards certain aspects of history inside the United States that breeds a psychosis that where people have these fantasies and they want to go up against power like they were the people that started the United States in the 1760s, 1770s, 1780s.
I get that part. I'm just again trying to figure out because so I mean,
If you got it, you wouldn't ask the question the way that you just asked me, though.
no, I understand that you're saying that they want to be this part of history, or they want to emulate what happened in history. I get that part of it. But again, I think that we do need to make the distinction, at least on some level, because, okay, so the reason I mentioned that's kind of that I don't even know if I can consider them a militia, but you know what? It's fine. So our documents that our forefathers put down and created the country is basically creating a romantic notion that has all of the jingoists thinking that they want to be part of something very similar. And so this is why things like this occur.
It's sort of. I mean, it's going in that direction. I mean, that's not. But it's not like a cause and effect thing. It's just this weird, like why. And again, we're going to talk about the why are people so emotionally attached to romantic images in popular culture as it relates to this stuff. I mean, why was Dexter so appealing to people? Honestly.
Well, I mean, the answer for myself
Mm-hmm.
is that he was doing shit that needed to get done. The answer for probably the masses was that there was lots of blood and gore, and it was a scary show.
I think that you're selling people. I think it's because they were enacting they were watching Dexter enact a fantasy that they were experiencing themselves.
That could be. I mean, I sell people short all the time. I'm not gonna deny it. I mean, if I thought that anything was done at a more intellectual level, and not saying that fantasy always equals intellect, but if I thought that they were thinking that way, then so much of the stuff that those same people do, they probably wouldn't do. And maybe not.
What do you mean? What do you mean? So much of the stuff that they do, they wouldn't.
Letting Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok make decisions for them. Staring at the fucking sky on the 4th of July, any of the things that they do. If they tried to analyze, this doesn't have anything to do with vigilantes, but it kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. So I talked to you briefly about the human condition question. Why are these people, why do they continue doing what they're doing? And I've asked several people, not that are out on the streets or at a mall or whatever, but people that I know, I've asked them, what is it like? Why go on? I don't understand what keeps me going, because I'm fucking pissed all the time. I'm miserable. I'm not happy. So I talked to you about it briefly, and then I talked to the same friend.
Sure, yeah.
And I said, I've been thinking about, maybe going around and taking some pictures, doing some interviews. But the problem is that I think that I would get lies and or bullshit. I'd like, oh, well, I keep going because I want to help people who are worse off than me, or I know things are going to get better, or whatever. And she told me, no, I don't think that's it. I think that they just don't know why they continue doing what they're doing. Whether, like, I see a dude on Colfax all the time in a fucking wheelchair, and he's freezing his fucking balls off because there's snow everywhere, and he's trying to go up a hill.
He doesn't feel it. Probably
not, because he's just paralyzed from the waist down.
Yeah, both figuratively and literally. He doesn't feel his balls.
So he's having hard times getting up hills and shit because there's snow everywhere.
But he keeps charging that battery and he keeps going.
Well, he's pushing the motherfucker.
Oh, I thought he had one of those ones that you could hit the...
That would make things a little... Maybe that's why he keeps going, is because he's hoping to get the fucking battery-powered wheelchair. But...
This is some dark fucking humor. Okay.
My point is that, like, something in our head keeps us going, and we don't necessarily know what it is, but... And maybe it's too dark for people to analyze, or maybe they don't want to know the answer. But the reason that I mentioned it is because that's kind of why I sell people short, is they either lie because they don't know, or they lie because they don't want to admit the answer, and I don't know which.
Maybe you should do the interviews.
Maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't just assume what the answer is going to be before you get to the end. I mean, it's funny that you say this. So, like, because I love my Star Trek, right? The Q Continuum is fascinated with the human race because of the question that you're talking about. They're like, how is it that you guys in the face of impossible odds, always continued to strive to not disappear, fade into the night, you know. I mean, the tragedy is that we're too stupid to fucking get our heads around the big picture, but we do continue to bash our heads against the fucking wall to no avail.
Well, and I'm not a real fucking optimist, so I know personally I don't keep going because I think things are going to get better. Maybe I just keep going because I want to see everybody eat shit like I knew they would. I don't know.
I don't believe that for a second.
Because I'm an optimist?
No, you're not an optimist.
Right.
But maybe I'll rephrase that. I don't think that you continue to do it only because you're waiting to see people eat shit. I think that every now and again there might be some instances where you'll appreciate a person eating shit when they're so fucking arrogant or pig-headed, and you know that they need a good shit burger, you know.
Yeah.
But that's not why you did the fucking the Demopublican shirts. That's not why you tried to create that website. That's not why you wrote the book. That's not why you started writing screenplays. It's not why you're doing what you're doing right here, right now.
Right. It's because I do have some glimmer of fucking hope. So maybe it is hope that keeps me going on. It's not faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You and Zizek are a lot alike in this sense because he says everybody always tells me, you know, look at the light at the end of the tunnel, and Zizek goes, it's not a light at the end of the tunnel. It's another train coming right fucking at me.
yeah.
So your cynicism is not lost on my favorite academic. That's for sure.
Okay. So maybe you're right. Maybe I am just selling people short, and maybe they do appreciate Dexter for that
I don't think that
that fantasy
I don't
part.
think that they know though. When I said that they do it because they want that they put themselves in that spot. I don't think that most people know that's why they do it though. But they compulsively like do it over and over, like observe it over and over again because it puts them back in that fantasy of justice. But they like
So
I
is it like physiological where they're getting a rush from the blood and guts, or
I don't even know like if it's on a subconscious level or there is some sort of like physical, you know, response to the experience. I don't know. Like I don't know. But I mean, I know that to an absolute degree of certainty that if you live in human existence, you appreciate concepts of justice. Like justice is something that I think is a universally observed value that everyone believes is inherently good. Like the concept of justice, the potential to have justice, if it were to play out in a concrete, universal, good way. I think you know. I mean, there are obviously people at the top that uh, they might play in the fantasy lands, but they enjoy holding everybody else down at the same time. So there's some caveats to what it is that I'm saying
well, that's because that's their
of
definition of
justice.
justice
Yes, that's
is I'm staying on top,
yeah, and that's justice
and it's
because I'm
just
smarter. Yeah,
us.
just that's good. I like
Yeah,
that. That's good. But
get your ass off my mountain, bitch.
but because we live in a time period where justice does not function in any concrete or meaningful way, when you see a hyperbolic expression of justice being played out, even in a very gory way like that, and maybe that even becomes more again, like you say, is there a physiological response to seeing, you know, that this guy, you know, raped and murdered 13-year-old, like 13-year-old girls, and Dexter just fucking cut him up with a fucking hacksaw. And I think that's a wonderful thing, you know, because everybody that, you know, especially anybody that has kids, but or nephews, nieces, anybody that, you know, or that it's happened to, when you see somebody go through the process of hacking a fucker up that's done something like that, you know. But I don't think that like see like you going around and asking people all these questions about what keeps them going, you're probably right. A lot of people don't dissect why the inertia continues to drive them in a specific way, but it does. So you're probably going to get a lot of answers that are going to be very surface, but you might get 7 or 8 that might reveal something, you know.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
But most people don't know why they watch Dexter. I'm pretty sure that that's true.
I thought it was great for the first 3 seasons. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of repetitive.
I don't know why you didn't like 4. I like 4. I like 5 too.
It just, I mean, it was formulaic. I mean, I understand you can only do so much with it, but okay, I'm fighting this thing. I've got this girlfriend, but I can't reveal who I am to her, so I wear this mask. Oh, I found a friend who can see beneath the mask. Oh, gotta kill the friend. Oh, gotta kill the friend again. Oh, I gotta kill the friend again. Fuck, I gotta kill the friend again.
I found a killer that can see beneath my mask. Oh, he killed my wife.
Right. Well, but the killer was the friend too.
But in the 5th season, when he Lumen, which I mean, that's so tacky. I mean, to give her, like shedding light, Lumen,
Yeah.
But to help her liberate herself, where she comes in touch with the darkness because of her experience with that douchey bunch of guys, and then she fucking goes and kills them all with him.
Yeah.
And then she's liberated, and the fact that he doesn't feel obligated to, he trusts her, even when she leaves.
That was the weirdos that were in that ended up being like a fucking
the Barrel Girls one.
Yeah, okay. But they ended up all working for that fucking guy that did
Jordan Chase.
Yeah, self-help speaking.
Yeah. Your primal self.
Yeah.
And then he says that it's all from the fucking Symposium by Plato. That's tacky bullshit. What a fucking jackass.
So
that was a very bad reading of the Symposium.
We should probably talk about Dexter more in the
other one,
entertainment episode. Yeah. But people don't understand, Plato or the Greeks in general. I was at the bar one time and somebody told me that the Odyssey was just a book about how bad bitches will fuck you over. And I was like, dude, are you serious?
The sirens, man. The sirens fuck you over, man.
So, anyway, so is a militia a bunch of vigilantes or no?
Well, see, this is where
I know the categorically thing. Yeah, I get it. I'll shut up about that. So then what else do you want to talk about?
Well, I don't care. I mean, we can talk about whatever, I mean, here, this is a good one. Okay, so this is actually kind of fun. So this is not militia in the United States, all right? So, what's MS-13?
Mm-hmm.
There were motherfuckers down in fucking El Salvador, right, where that was going on.
Mara Salvatrucha.
Have you heard about La Sombra Negra, the Black Shadow?
Mm-mm.
These motherfuckers would find fucking MS-13. So MS-13 is a fucking drug gang, right? A fucking horrible, evil, killing, murdering, not very forgiving drug gang in El Salvador.
Everywhere. They're global now.
Now they are, but they were, their original base was in El Salvador. The people that were fleeing from Central America because of the drug wars and because of the forced growing of, what were they forcing them? They were forcing them to grow. There was something they were forcing them to grow.
No, I wasn't. I was shaking my head because I don't fucking know. It could be coffee, bananas.
It was drugs of some sort.
They were forcing them.
Heroin stuff or something.
Okay.
One or the other. But they
MS-13 was forcing them to grow it.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the government was forcing people to grow stuff,
No.
That's why MS-13 said, fuck you, we're not going to grow coffee. We can make a lot more money off coke.
Yeah. It was a hyper-oppressive environment, though, where they were forcing the farmers to do all this shit, and they were fucking killing anybody that didn't do it, which is why when you talk about people that left El Salvador and are trying to get refuge in here as asylum, gain asylum here, it's because they were trying to escape MS-13. Well, there's this other group. They were allegedly, and they don't really know a ton about it, but they were going and like kidnapping the MS-13 guys and like sexually molesting them and then fucking killing them in horrible, brutal ways as a way to like say, you do what you do here, you do what you do there, but if you fucking come here, it's over. And the belief was that they were all ex-law enforcement people, because they knew how to do certain things that other people didn't know how to do.
That rendition shit sounds like United States training to me.
Yeah,
Black bags over the head.
it could be, yeah. I mean, but no matter what, they were. I mean, it was straight up, and this was like a vigilante group that was inside El Salvador that was going after the gangs that were doing all this shit to regular people. So that was kind of a cool, like on some level, like if a person's a vigilante like that, like I like that. I don't have no fucking problems with that.
I kind of dig that, but now that you mention that, so regardless of whether the United States trained them or not, or whether or not they get their fucking weapons from the United States or anything else, because it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, because MS-13 has gotten to be such a big problem here that a lot of the MS-13 gang members that were here were deported back home, and they ended up being more powerful there because then they had like the street cred from the United States and whatever. So it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to shut it down in Central America in the hopes that it would slow things down in the United States, which that's again just like the bus trick that California pulled with the fucking gang members in the 80s where they bought them bus tickets instead of putting them in jail and shipped them to fucking Utah and Denver and fucking Portland and wherever. That just spread the fucking gang problem. So I think that that's really kind of a cool thing. But let's say they are a large organization, they have military training, they have automatic weapons, small arms, maybe even fucking tanks and shit. I don't know. Um, Explosives, whatever. And they're shutting down MS-13. Then they are vigilantes because they're taking the law into their own hands and helping out farmers and whatever. But are they also a militia?
See, you're taking it further than it was though, and you should go back and look. These were not.
Well, the reason I
They weren't
asked,
functioning out in the open though. There were not. They did not have tanks. They did not have a bunch of arms or a bunch of places. There were things that they had, and there were capabilities that they had. I'll acknowledge both of those things. But the reason why they were called the Black Shadow, La Samba Negra, was because the intention was to not be visible. You know, the intention was to and to become the boogeyman. You know, I mean, when you're moving in and out real quick and it could be you next, you've got more power than if you just try to become the next opposing
no, I get
political.
that. But if they truly wanted to remain in the shadows,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't have given themselves a fucking name.
You see this, you and your fucking technicalities, dude.
Well,
You
dude,
can give yourself a name, and the boogeyman sometimes has to have a name.
maybe. I just think giving yourself a signature is a bad way
Kaiser Sose,
is a
Kaiser Sose.
bad way to get caught. Um, so the reason I asked though is because something similar happened in Colombia with Escobar and FARC,
Uh-huh.
and those lines kind of ended up blurring a little bit sometimes and then separating again and blurring again and
The enemy
but
of your enemy is your friend.
so FARC was fighting against the fucking cocaine manufacturers, distributors, whatever you want to call them, the narco traffickers. Um, were those guys either vigilantes in the definition of just taking the law into their own hands, and or the the definition that we've kind of been talking about for 15 or 20 minutes, where it's some people wanting to be part of history?
Well, I have a friend that she just actually defended her dissertation last year. She lives in
Yeah,
Colombia.
Swedish girl,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and she, I mean, her whole dissertation was based on interviews that she had with FARC and ex-FARC uh, activists. I mean, like the way that they're always characterized in popular media is militant left-wing activists. Um, I mean, because it becomes sort of subjective. I mean, a person could turn to them and say, you're a terrorist. You're a vigilante. I mean, they read their marks and they identified themselves as revolutionary activists. I mean, which suggests clearly that they saw themselves as agents of history. I mean, in that context. But I think and I hate because I don't like creating fucking fine line distinctions like this because I think it betrays a disposition like of a varying disposition with regards to categories and like static abstractions that. But for our purposes here, I'll play along in this instance. They were working uh, in a group where the group was more important than the individual. So and that meant that the view of history that they were trying to succeed at attaining was more important than any, you know. And when you see like people that identify themselves as vigilantes, there is a concept of ego. There is a concept of ego in that space that, and I know I'm sounding like I'm a little bit romantic about uh, the way that they characterize themselves, but I do think that there's enough of a distinction where when it's not about Che, when it's not about uh, Castro, when it's not about Mao. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not the shit that they did. That's not the point. But there are certain dispositions inside of. I mean, and it's true to say that sometimes there are people that are inside those spaces where the head of the is gets too big for his britches and probably should get cut off. I get that. But FARC, the way that they functioned for 29 years when they were, for all intents and purposes, at war with the U.S. government and with the drug cartels, like you were talking about, they maintained a position that was fortified inside of Colombia to where they came out of it no longer at war, um, and a viable political force, political economic force inside of Colombia, even to this day. I mean, I think that kind of distinguishes them from that because I think that, like again, I think the vigilante is a psychosis. I think seeing yourself like that is not probably a healthy thing to do. I think that there might be moments in history where it's essential for something like that to exist. You need that sort of like dark superhero to sort of like come out. But at the same time, like one of the two or three times that I was listening to things, they talked about Dillinger. Like, was he just you know, a criminal, or was he, really? I mean, because he was making a point about things. I mean, he was making a point about the power of the system and giving a big fucking middle finger to the system. It wasn't just although the Robin was a part of it, So, but when it coalesces on a social level like that, where it becomes more dynamic, I think that creates a space to where it opens up a space to where there's a possibility of something that transcends a normal concept like vigilantism.
Well, so what you just said about FARC, and I didn't even think about that because I was sitting here and I was like, they did fight the United States government, but they were also fighting the Colombian government. And maybe they were fighting the Colombian government because of the United States.
We were definitely giving the Colombian government a bunch of hardware and training. I mean,
right. But so, and this, and I'm not trying to back you into a corner and make you give an answer. Again, I'm just trying to have a discussion. But so, FARC, you know, at one time they're considered rebels, terrorists, and then now, like you said, they're a political party. They've got some juice. with the way that transition happened, they, on a smaller level, are kind of what the United States militia and then eventually the armed forces did against the crown. Because, well, and again, that's why I said a smaller level, but I mean, we were just fucking rebels, terrorists, whatever. And then we said, fuck you. Now we are our own country. Get the fuck out. Um, I know FARC didn't say get the fuck out,
It's
but
kind of an apples and oranges thing, I'd say.
I was just trying to fucking
back me into a corner.
No, I was trying to fucking say that they were a militia and now they're actually, looked on at a global level as somebody that isn't a terrorist. They are a political power, um, more than just being a bunch of people in the jungle with the guns or on the coast with the guns, whatever. That was
the geography is really important.
That was the analogy that I was making, not the fact that they got their own country, dickface. Okay, so I don't know, because theirs is definitely a lot more interesting. I mean, because they were fighting against so many different people at so many different times and allied with so many different people
the fact
at
that
so
they
many
made it
different
through
times.
the fact that they made it through that, as something, not totally being destroyed is kind of remarkable. I mean, that's why like I had actually talked to her about if we got going at this at some point in time, if she'd want to come on and talk to us about it specifically, and she said absolutely. So maybe we'll figure that one out, because it is really, when I say it's apples and oranges, but there are similarities, and there are things that but to be able to come through it and to exist in the aftermath. But I mean, that begs a bunch of questions too. Are you just being bought out at that point in time? Are you forfeit a bunch of your ideals to come out from underground? Like you function like the Weather Underground. You were significantly more effective than the Weather Underground ever was. But when you resurfaced, I mean, Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers one of them teaches at Northwestern, the other one teaches at some other school in Chicago area, Illinois, somewhere there. Um, most of them are professors. I mean, they're clearly not revolutionaries anymore, and that's, of course, that's a much smaller scale than what it was that FARC was capable of doing. But what did they sacrifice by? I mean, and that's something that we have to ask her about, because she's going to be a lot closer to it. She'd have a much more interesting opinion than I ever would.
Well, but I mean, I'm a cynic, so I ask that question anytime something like that happens, regardless of what level we're talking about. But I mean, if you go from being a terrorist to all of a sudden being accepted by the government that had deemed you a terrorist, what did you have to do? Did you rat a bunch of people out?
Yeah.
Did you have to pay bribes?
Swear fealty to the crown. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those things. Yeah. It's an important question. But I mean, I think that one solid rejoinder, generally speaking, is, and I have to say that when the Weather Underground people came up from underground, like what they did there, it reminds me of some of the stuff that happened when Gorbachev was in power in the Soviet Union. And if you read Perestroika, there's this part in it where he talks about so there has to be this sort of like unifying hegemonic rise for the next new dialectical synthesis to come and play, meaning that the Soviet Union in the form that it exists as a counterpoint to the United States had outlived its social usefulness, and it had to kind of get consumed by that system to drive something else further to the, I mean, like, and in that context, I don't know enough about FARC to say whether or not this is so, but I know the Weather Underground enough to know that Bernadine and Bill both spent a ton of time because there was nothing more that they weren't going to blow any more buildings up. The ability for the state to observe everything that you were doing was becoming much more sophisticated at that point. They had been given a gateway out because the FBI had done so many illegal things in terms of observing them that they basically said, we will not charge you for any of those things as long as you guys come up, and no more. C'est fini. It's over, you know. And in that moment, they reinvented themselves. They reinvented themselves to where they like Bernadine and Bill specifically, they wrote a bunch of books on criminalizing children. You know, like making it so that the revolving door of kids coming in and out of prison would start at a very young age inside of very specific communities. And they did a bunch of stuff to try to help those kids have, you know, different ways out. But that was still striking at the power structure. They never stopped coming out, but they had to change their tactics because the old tactics were no longer going to be functional. And I assume that on some level, when you've been stuck in the fucking jungle for 30 years, you know, and you're going to get to a stalemate where you have to find a way to reincorporate yourself back into that system, and you can affect it in different ways because you're no longer standing kind of, you know, sort of like opposed to it as an opposite, but you go inside of it, and sort of like when Neo and Smith, you know, they come together and then they explode and then something new comes out of it, you know. I mean, it's the same kind of idea as that. So
I wonder. Yeah, no, I just, I understand what you're saying. I was just sitting here trying to figure out, like, there, well, it doesn't matter. Because I know we're kind of on the same page. We're just kind of slightly disagreeing, like we do on pretty much every other fucking topic. But I think the basis is there. So I think just this couple of hours worth of conversation has, well, that and the little bit of research that I did over the past week has kind of changed my personal definition of what a vigilante is or isn't. But I still have a real hard time with the lynch mob thing being a vigilante.
well, I mean, but you even said the people that were identifying those people, especially in 21. I mean, that, like, yeah, calling a lynch mob where you're going down and destroying, you know, like you have a group of people that have been fucking disenfranchised as humans, you know, and they finally create a level of success for themselves, and you go down there and you fucking kill them all. I mean, yeah, those guys are. I mean, by our definition, I'm not going to look at that person as. But I mean, again, like it's the assholes that justified what they were doing. They identify them as vigilantes because they were using the concept of vigilantes. I mean, it's no different than what fucking Trump did, you know.
Right.
And so one of the, I mean, to bring it back full circle to the old town hall thing. One of the questions that I can't remember the name of the lady that did most of she was such a fucking idiot. She was so bad. But she said, "Are you going to pardon if you become president? Are you going to pardon the January 6th people? Yeah, the people that are in prison." He says, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it to every one of them, you know, but I'll look at each one of them as a case by case basis." And he says, "I'm going to tell you right now that a lot of them don't belong in jail, you know. I mean, so." And what they did was, you know, was pure dipshittery. You know, I'm sorry, 3%ers. You know, that wasn't revolution. You know, I've thought a lot about revolution in my life, and that ain't fucking what revolution looks like. That looks like a bunch of fucking elder statesmen, you know, that you have a pocket full of fucking Viagra, that got a hard on for something and, you know, miss the fucking spot. If you shoot for the king, what do they say? If you shoot for the king, you better not fucking miss.
Yeah.
And they fucking missed, like, in the totally wrong. Didn't even know what they were fucking going. I mean, honestly, you're gonna go take down the fucking vice president because then the Senate's making it official is no longer official. I mean, you guys are idiots. Get the fuck over yourselves.
I just the entire thing fucking still kind of makes me laugh because I mean I don't know how much thought was actually put into it. Or maybe, like you're saying, they just wanted to be part of history so bad that they wanted that infamy. Um,
I would be curious to have a conversation. And I'd be open to listen to whatever they had to say. You know, I would be curious to hear what the ones that were at the top of it, what was really going on in their mind. I think that would be an interesting conversation.
because they weren't getting at any of them. I mean, all of those buildings have fucking super secure lockdowns. They have fucking probably secret transport out from the basement. I mean,
Several secret
yeah.
transport. Yeah.
I mean, like a fucking train. I'm not talking about a little tunnel that you can
No.
walk out of. I'm
You mean
talking
an
about
escape route, like a real
going
fucking
down and there's a fucking train there and it zooms you out.
or
And
something to that effect.
next thing you know, you're in fucking Pennsylvania and totally away from everything.
Well, I'm not going to go that far, Elon Musk.
Or at your missile silo in fucking Virginia or wherever
Now you really
your
are
underground
Elon Musk.
bunker. Well, they really do have all of that shit. I mean, there's a fucking underground bunker in, I think it's Northern Virginia, that is large enough to house the house. I mean, it's huge.
There's a difference between an underground bunker and having a fucking high-speed bullet train to Pennsylvania underneath the fucking, starting at the Capitol. You know,
Pennsylvania and Washington D.C. aren't that far apart.
I'm the Star Trek guy, dude. You can't do the Star Trek getaway thing.
That wasn't Star Trek. That's like real life.
It's like Star Trek for moles, right?
Right. But anyway, so just to think about it, unless they had like schematics, building schematics and shit like that, the plan was destined to fail. And I think that they knew that. And that's the part that makes me laugh.
Well, especially since like we know in the aftermath that the ATF and the FBI and all these different institutions had totally fucking infiltrated these organizations.
Right.
There was no confusion about what was. I mean, the fact that it got as far as it did without anybody intervening to stop it is maybe something that people should be asking a few more questions about. You know, like why they would let that play out like that. Is that really what is that what the FBI should be doing in these days and ages? Being part of these spaces, just watching and doing and.
I've asked some of those questions too, like did they wait because they wanted to make sure that they committed the crime before they arrested them so that there was a crime as opposed to, some of the other shit? Because I know I've accused them of like false arrest because somebody was flying to a country where terrorism was. So they're like, well, we're going to get you under Patriot Act. You were going to be a terrorist. Fuck you, I wasn't going to be a terrorist. I was taking a trip. I mean, until I commit a crime, I don't care who I'm fucking talking to. I didn't do anything wrong.
That's one of the reasons why people were talking so much about Epps was because like on the night of the 5th, the one where they got him on camera, if you go to YouTube and look up Epps January 5th, there's a clip of him saying, tomorrow we got to go into the Capitol, and there's this guy standing right next to him, and he starts going, Fed, 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 and everybody's like, Fed, 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 because he's telling them to do things that would cause,
Right.
Only a person who's trying to inflame the same shit that they used to do to the left all the fucking time. It's nice to see him do it to the right a little bit, since my people have been brutalized so often over this issue.
I'm glad you figure that those are your people. My people.
They're all my people. I just liked him saying Fed. That made me happy, like instantly. Whoa.
We're over an hour now. We're coming up on an hour and 5. I want to go back to something you said because I had no idea about that guy. So being in Texas, I'm gonna call him a Mexican. I'm sure that if he has fucking swastikas and shit on him, he's gonna call himself Spanish. But we've got to do a fucking episode at some point on, I don't know, maybe race relations, but something, because this guy, I don't give a fuck if his name was an Irish, Scottish, German surname. Unless he fit a certain profile, the Nazis probably would have fucking killed him. They definitely wouldn't have given him a good job. So for somebody to walk around with fucking SS tattoos and swastikas and shit, it is just utter stupidity. So I think it's important to talk about, but I think that this, and you did use him as an example of one of those people that wants to be part of history, right?
I think that
A history agent.
His fantasy is something like that. Yes, the psychosis in his mind is that he sees himself as a historical actor.
Okay, so the psychosis in his particular instance that made him a vigilante was that he wanted to be or help white people in their fucking race for supremacy. No, I know. No, dude. I know. Well, I am trying to make it make sense. I don't understand it. Like,
something drives a person to do something like that. Is it just because they're angry? They see themselves committing an act that they feel is necessary.
Do you remember in the late 80s and early 90s here around Denver? And I think that they had made a national thing, but there were, I think they were called Snot. But they were a bunch of skinheads, but they were against racial prejudice.
Sharp.
It was sharp.
Skinheads against racial prejudice. Jesus Christ, dude. Snot. You know, you were part of a group called Dildo.
No, there were
Dumb idiot loves dildo.
There were some skinheads called Snot too, or maybe there were some skinheads in a band called Snot. I know that skinheads had something to do with Snot.
No, there was Snot. Skinheads in a band called Snot.
But those sharp guys, like, you know, they wore the flight jackets, they wore the Doc Martens, they had the braces, not on their teeth, on their shoulders. They had the shitty haircuts, and a lot of them were black or Mexican, but they were skinheads. And
the skinhead movement did not start as a racist movement. When it started in the UK, it was not a racist movement. It graduated to a racist movement later on. It did not begin as a racist movement. Skinheads were initially not racist.
Really?
Yes. I can find some stuff on it. But yeah, it started in the UK and they were all punks, but it was about consciousness and it was about not doing a bunch of drugs, and they were like sharp, because sharps wasn't just skinheads against racial prejudice. It was treating your body a certain way, you know.
Well, because by the early 80s, the skinheads in the UK were racist.
I don't think all of them were. Okay. I think that things were being projected a certain way in the media, but I'll find you some information on that.
That's fine. I can do research too. I
don't think so.
No, you're right. I'm just gonna look up Snot. So
Snot. What the fuck was that, dude?
No, I'm telling you, there was a fucking band called Snot, and
it was a punk band?
Related to fucking skinheads somehow. But Okay, I never realized that skinheads were not racist to begin with. So maybe the black people that were skinheads um,
There's a snot rapper.
were before the racist skinheads, so they had more justification to be there than the others. And I don't think the ones that were against racial prejudice were getting Nazi tattoos and SS symbols and whatever icons tattooed on their
I think
body.
you're safe to assume that. Yes.
Well, I don't know if I am or not because there's apparently some Mexican down in Texas with fucking swastikas all over.
This is the 21st century weirdo, you know.
Fuck.
Yeah, I guess that. I mean, all this stuff is coming from the left, so I need to like. But there was a guy that came on Breaking Points and talked a bunch about it. So we'll see. There's some people that I trust when I read their media, and there are others that I just don't trust at all.
So, do you know, was his swastika about brown supremacy and not?
No.
No. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
No, my understanding, and I'll send something to you after we close out. But my understanding is that it was an identification with white supremacy. Like he did not like he, I don't think the Spanish thing isn't exactly. I don't know if but I'll have to get you some more information on it at a later point. But he did have that shit all over himself, and it was like fucking like just like in what's the name of the movie?
Snot.
Ed Norton, not Snot.
American History X.
Yeah, like the shit that he had on himself. Yeah, it was just about as in your fucking face as it could possibly. There was no confusion what this guy's ideological disposition was, despite the fact that he had a Spanish surname. You know.
Dude. Well, that goes back to the fucking whole healthcare thing, because people are out of their fucking minds. Okay, so we're at an hour 12. You want to talk about anything else?
Oh, there was just one other thing. The only way we're going to solve this is to get the political constipation a social constipation to get a good social enema. So when I was thinking about it, like earlier today, I was like, we really are just totally socially constipated.
Apparently, Darren also has the fucking Delphus morphinium thing going on.
That's a different kind of blockage, though.
All right, so next 2 episodes will be shit like Batman and fucking Dexter and whatever.
There's a bunch of good.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff.
Falling Down. I haven't ever watched that. I need to watch that movie before this weekend. The one with Michael Douglas in it, where he's got a bazooka in it.
He's got his vigilante parts. Like he stopped crime. I think he stopped a robbery.
He does all kinds of weird shit, dude.
He's trying to get
to his kid's birthday party.
I think if I remember, yeah, but I think if I remember, he shot a fucking VCR repairman. I mean, he just flat fucking snapped, dude.
Well, then that might be a good one to where it's like the darker side of that sort of vision the thing that I'm positing, not so much whether or not it's something that I identify as vigilanteism, but how he's feeling in the moment that's causing him to sort of go off the fucking rails.
And a lot of these people are going to be the anti-hero, right?
Yeah, like, I mean that's Batman is the crystallization of the anti-hero, right?
Well, one of my favorites is the Punisher.
Oh, they talked a bunch about the Punisher in this thing that I read.
He's a fucking badass.
And there was this top 10 of vigilante movies that I was watching, and there was a movie that was based off the Punisher, and they used a different name, but because of how important he is as an anti-hero. So
yeah. So shit like that is coming up in the next 2 episodes. Shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
720-334. Roll, bitches.
Get off this bus, bitch. We're done.
Get off the bus.